day when I get to come up live on a Wednesday, midweek with the Jeff Robertson Show. Special request, folks, from my friend John Wildside. John Wildside reached out to me the other day. If he was in our last episode, John had talked to us a little bit about and was educating us on his work in the film industry and things that he's doing and his acting and all the cool things that he gets to do, which takes my curiosity up, because I did. And one of the comments I got on our last show was we were talking about Miami Vice, and I was like, well, so when John's messaging me, Abe, I start going through my head. I'm like, all right. So I tell my wife, I'm like, all right, Abe's going to help me. I'll have me and John will have our own version of Miami Vice. This is going to be awesome. It's already, the wheels have been set in motion today that we're going to have our own version of the Jeff and John Miami Vice um, cop show, and we're gonna have we got all sorts of background and stories that we'll be able to use for scripts and contents. Because he talked the other night, he goes, we need to start talking about some of the crazy stuff we done, and I was like, oh yeah, we can. That's a whole episode. So there we are, Abe. But on back on the serious, not a little bit of what we're going to talk about today was John was telling me all this stuff, and as the guy who sits here, former public safety guy, former SWAT operator, all the cool stuff I got to do is I'm asked all the time. I'll have folks on here that have wrote books, and they're like, Jeff, what is it? And people will come to me like, Jeff, I want to write my own book. I heard you had this guy on there that was a book. Can you connect me with them? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But people learn what it takes, and now. Abe, I can't thank Abe Lopez enough for being here today to talk about the film industry and the acting work, the stuff that he's introduced John for. But Abe, man, thank you for coming on here. John pitched this idea to me to meet you, and I was like, absolutely. And we figured out how to make it work really, really fast. So thank you for coming in and spending some time with us today.
Oh man, I appreciate the invite and to John, like he reached out and I'm never too busy for something like this, you know. It's
Yeah.
an awesome opportunity for all of us.
How did folks, if you go back, John Wildside, just to speak to his recovering addict, had his battles with addiction, has this moment inside of his life that is life changing for just an interaction with his daughter at a father daughter dance. That's our first episode together. And last week we walked through a whole lot more of just his time and trials and tribulations and just walking with John through his life, and he's very candid, like I am, about tell a story, and it's one of those things that we're hoping that impacts and helps make a difference in other folks' lives. And folks, you've met me and heard my stories of former police officer resilience and setbacks, and so intuitive learnings and teachings that I'm working on now, and spend a lot of time in leadership. But hey, how did you come to know John?
Well, it wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah, not at all.
It was a director. He reached out to me and he was like, "Listen, I got a part for this short film that I'm shooting, and I think you fit the part." So he sent me the details. I didn't know anybody else that was gonna be on it. Um, Actually, no. Let me take that back. Let me take that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a student from my acting class. She was the one that reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm shooting a short film, and the director is looking for somebody, and I thought of you. You'd be perfect for it." So yeah, that's when he actually reached out to me, and he was like, "Listen, this would be a perfect fit for you." He gave me the details. I was like, "Let's do it." I'm not really, uh, I haven't really shot a lot of short films in my acting career, but it's always good to to have a little bit of everything. So I went ahead and agreed. And when I got on set, when I got to the location, that's when I met a couple of the acting students that we already know. Like we're already in that same acting studio, and that's when they started introducing us to the rest of the talent. And that's when I met John. I saw him. I was like, all right, this guy, you can't mess with this guy because you can tell. Like when I saw him dressed up as the type of bouncer slash bodyguard, I was like, all right, so this is gonna be good. This is gonna be an awesome set. But as soon as we started talking, like we clicked. We had that chemistry. It was easy to talk to. I'm the type of person that when I start talking with somebody and I don't feel that positive vibe,
Yeah.
I kind of like, all right, I keep my distance. I don't try to engage to see if, well, maybe if there are some things that we can relate to, maybe it'll change. No, it didn't feel like that with John at all. As soon as we started talking, we clicked, we started getting along with each other. As soon as we started hitting it off, it was an amazing set.
Yes.
I think that happens, Abe. And I can echo what you said. Is John and I hit it off pretty easy. We haven't worked to make any of this come to life when we're creating and when we're sitting down in this role here. It's
Right.
definitely we've just, and that's what I told you guys earlier. Like, hey, we just try to find the flow in the conversation, and that's, man, it's been easy for us. And I think sometimes when you get that, is you find this ability, like it's something, it comes to, people will say it come natural, but it's like
Yes.
almost it's supposed to be, right? It's kind of, it's so easy because it's something that we're supposed to be doing, and these connections
Yeah.
sometimes are supposed, if you're having to work too hard at it, everybody's like, oh, you need to put all your effort. I'm like, that's not always the case. We
No.
didn't come here to make everything hard. There's struggles that we have, but when it comes to when your relationships and your conversations flow like they have with John and I, man, I totally get what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
How did hey, walk me back? Now you're in your acting class. Where did for just our audience, kind of spin everybody up
Okay.
on your background and how you found your way into acting and what that kind of looks like for you.
Oh man.
Real quick, folks. This is I've been waiting for this one right here. For real.
John,
For real.
all right, so John, this is
Yeah,
the
no, no. We broke the surface as far as this stuff. Like we
Right.
connected on a lot of different things, been on multiple different sets together. But this is where I really wanted to break that,
Oh
break the
man.
ice and get into the nitty gritty for real.
All right.
yeah.
So it wasn't planned at all, really, Jeff. This was something that I just say that life had to teach me the rough way, the hard way. I I'm a veteran. I served 11 years in the army, and after I got out in 2016. I hit rock bottom, man. I got in the worst shape of my life. I'm talking about physically, mentally, spiritually. I was all over the place. I became suicidal. I thought my family didn't want anything to do with me. I was isolated pretty much 25/8 of the time. I was on my own. I was in my guest room by myself. I didn't want to know about my kids. I didn't want to know about my wife. I thought that they hated me. I thought that they didn't want anything to do with me. The PTSD is a real thing. Depression, anxiety, all that is real. A lot of people think it's a mental thing. You can. There's a lot of ways to overcome it. It's not. No, it doesn't work that way. And it doesn't only happen to soldiers. It can happen to anybody.
Yep.
For whatever reason. But it hit me, after I got out the military. Maybe it was because I had there was a lot of gap in between the military and my family time. I didn't spend a lot of time with my kids. I wasn't working after I got out the military. It was so hard for me to actually look and find for a good job that would support my family. So, that started the depression. Yeah, and so the story went on. I became suicidal. I got in my car. I purposely tried to get in a crash multiple times. And the second time that it happened, when I got home, thankfully nobody got hurt. My car was a total wreck, but the other person, nothing happened to the lady or to her daughter, thankfully. But that night, when I started getting ready to go to sleep, I had a dream. That was the first night that my life changed. I started to dream that, when normally you have a dream and you get hit in the dream, you automatically wake up. That
Yeah,
impact
yeah.
of hurt, or that happens normally when you start to have that dream. But in the dream, I was trying to commit suicide, and I went through it in the dream. And from that moment on, I was transported to somewhere else. It was a beautiful place. It looked like heaven, but it wasn't heaven. And I wake up, and there was a man that greeted me, and he told me, Abe, I've been waiting for you. Um, this is where your journey begins. And boom, I woke up. I didn't think anything of it that first night. I woke up in the middle of the night. I thought of it. I didn't give it much thought. Second, third, fourth, and fifth night in a row, I had the exact same dream. The exact same person greeted me, and the exact same moment that he tells me, this is when your journey begins, I woke up. And I didn't, at the fifth night when I woke up, I immediately started to write it down. I didn't think it was a coincidence. I told myself, I'm a Christian man, and I believe that God shows us ways to be able to overcome any obstacle and journeys that we might have in our life. So I started writing it, and I got inspired. I started writing more to this I don't know how you call it, a vision or a dream, whatever it is that you want to call it. I started writing, and I started writing and writing until I had over, what I would say, over 10,000 words. And I was like, man, like, this is incredible. Like, I didn't, my mental state was no longer suicidal, or yeah, I was still, sad and depressed and all of that, but I wasn't trying to hurt myself in that moment. And when I finished writing, uh, I told myself, man, like, this could be a movie script. I could change this into a movie script, and who knows, maybe one day I could see it in the big screen. So I reached out to my aunt. She's an actress over 20 years in LA, and I told her about it. And she was like, hey, this is beautiful. I want to recommend and suggest that you publish this as a novel. Why? Because a lot of movies nowadays are based out of books. So I went that route. I went ahead and I got it published. And I told myself in this moment, if this ever does become a movie or a TV show or anything on the big screen, I would like to be one of these characters. Not the main character, because I had no idea, what acting was, but I would like to be one of these actors. So that's what motivated me into the acting, industry.
Dude, that's a powerful story.
Yes. I
You
heard
ever
that.
heard that before, John?
That's awesome to hear, man. I love it. I've heard. I love it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, and I think sometimes it goes back to us trying to figure out our purpose, thinking we in control of all the things, and then turns out we not. And I'm a very, sometimes I've told John, so I study spirituality in a very backward way. I think some people would probably say it's backward, but I fix it. Like I use ChatGPT to teach me things on a level of that. It's a very understand, like I understand. And me and him was where I work on some leadership content, and I was going over with him the other night. So when you talk about those stories and the repetitive of that, I just intuitive, and some of those things has happened to me over time, and I talk about them sometimes is and those little small when you're trying to find your way. And what I was curious about, and so I want to speak to, and what you'll see, a and John, just to you what you find sometimes is military and then law enforcement, my background, is where we're that's our identity because they provide us this set of bookends and structure, and you just operate inside of that. And when that's removed, and that's what I wanted to know, Abe, do you feel like you struggled there with your in your life post military? Is it because of where your identity was wrapped up or finding new purpose? Where you feel like you could put that on now?
I definitely have to say that it was the transition, the changing
Yeah.
to the civilian world. Um, it's not like I joined the military right after high school. I joined when I was in, my early 20s. But like my first career was the military. I was in the job force, you know, doing a bit of everything, construction, fast food, whatever it was to earn an honest dollar. That was I was in it. But an actual career itself, I was never college material either. So the military pretty much taught me, the structure of discipline, of organization, of everything that I needed to know to be able to survive and make it in this world, and even helped me be a more responsible person. So getting out of the military and being able to provide that in the civilian world and not being able to at the same time because I couldn't find anything, that to me was a struggle. I didn't know what else to do, and I'm a true believer that not every, it doesn't apply to everybody, but I do believe that a lot of human beings have to really hit rock bottom to find out the definition and the reality of what's really important in your life.
Yes, 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 yes.
I'm with you on that. I think that's where we find it. I think you got to get to that point, and everybody's gets and your variations of that is dependent on you. I think of just how deep that rock bottom moment's got to be. I think the three of us have. I think Abe, we could definitely say that that's 100% truth. I think everybody here has felt that. I got arrested for DUI as a police officer, and that
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. You know what I
the
mean? For real, yeah, yeah, yeah.
ultimate rock bottom was trying to my identity was all wrapped up in that. That's who I was, and that's all I knew. And then, you know, within a few clicks of cuffs and a few hours later, I am trying to figure out what I had known for the greater part of almost 15 years or so, 20 years. Um, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to start over, and I am not in that mindset, and I am kicking the can, and I am everything that you're describing. And life came along in these little subtle ways of giving me purpose. My son came along, my wife came along, and my son came along, and um, a daughter came along. So all these little purposeful things started falling in, and for me to the to fast forward, Abe, to tell you about this intuitive moment is the trooper that arrested me passes away. About 5 years or so after the fact, and then when you get to that was in '07. When you fast forward to like 2021, 2020, it was 2022. Um, I end up having this conversation with this guy one time, and he was like, "Hey man, I just want you to know you made a big difference in me and my wife's life." I was owning a gym at the time, or owned a gym at the time. He's like, "I just want you to know you made a big difference in my wife's life, and we're a happier couple now." And there's a whole story that goes with it, but I wanted to, and he's talked to me because, "Hey, I heard you used to be a police officer," and I'm like, "Yeah, man." And I go, he goes, "Yeah, my dad was a police officer. Do you know who this guy's dad was?"
I'm pretty sure it was the one that passed,
The one that arrested
the one
me.
that arrested you. Yes.
Yeah, right. So when you talk about like the worst thing that I felt like it ever happened to me at the time of just my life, and to go through this many years later and to be that impactful in that moment, um, that was like one of my, when that happened years later, that was my laying in the bed and going to the place and the guy saying, "Hey, there's a bigger purpose for you." That was kind of my moment of that as well, was when I was sitting beside him at the table and I was like, "Oh my God, if you only knew who you were sitting beside right now."
Yeah.
And it took me a year. I finally called him. I was like, "Hey, I want to take you for dinner." Me and then so we went to dinner. And I sat down and told him the whole story. And man, me and him had a moment. And he told me stuff about what his dad had said about that night. He goes, "Oh, I remember. I know you, man." And so it was all positive though, dude. Like it was really good, and it brought this closure. So I was going to tell you that, because we all can. John had been there with his daughter, in that dance that night, and we have those rock bottom moments together. The other thing I was going to ask you, when we get into the PTSD side of things, of where you're struggling post military, and we're dealing with PTSD. one of my guests on here had said, Jeff, one of the best cures for PTSD, or there's two ways, was to write it or to draw it. And I kind of added a third one in there of talking about it. And my podcast has always been about finding folks like me and John and just like-minded individuals that we just kind of talk through our BS, right? We just, and I've had some people on my podcast that have some freaking moving stories, dude. And they have gave me advice. They have talked to me through their journey. They've like, hey, I worked on this and this helped. And they have helped me just turn these amazing corners to the point of where I like really enjoy talking about it and telling the story like we do now. I wanted to know if you felt like acting had the same influence on you.
It did have a big part of it. Yes, indeed. I'm not gonna say it was the only part, because right after I wrote this, it's like you said, writing to me, and I grew up not reading anything. I was reading probably, magazines or the TV guide. That was the only thing that I would read because, or writing, I was not the type to write anything like that. So this was my first experience in writing and being able to publish it. So writing to me was a big part of it. The gym was an absolutely huge part as well because, like I said, I was physically I got in the worst shape of my life. I was weighing over 200 pounds, which I had never gotten. So being able to, I even did my own little office in the house, and I turned it into a gym, and I little by little started to take care of myself physically. And that's when, now that I'm in my early 40s, I feel better than when I was in my 20s.
My man.
And I bet John feels the same way. He ain't that old, but I know he feels way better than what he was before.
Yes, sir.
So, the gym, writing, acting. Before I started acting, I did modeling, and again, it wasn't something that I planned. When I got in the best shape of my life physically, I told myself, man, I would love to do a photo shoot because I don't know how long this is gonna last.
Yes.
I thought I was gonna, start, getting out of shape in the near future. So I went ahead and I contacted a photographer and I was like, I want to do a photo shoot, because I'm proud. I'm happy of my goal of how I've been able to achieve what I look like. And he was like, all right, let's do it. And we did it. We finished the session, and he asked me, "How long have you been modeling?" I'm like, "Dude, like this is something that I just literally did for the first time in my life." And he was like, "Bro, you're a natural. You need to continue to do this." So I went ahead, and as I was doing it, it was. He said I'm a natural. I didn't feel it, but now that I think of it, like yes, it was all natural to me. It was an easy process for me, and I took that as as a tool when he told me that, and I continued to do it. And as I was continuing to book modeling sessions, it was a huge therapy for me as well. Like that was amazing. And at the same time, it told myself like this is gonna be another reason for you to stay in shape. Because
Yeah.
if I'm not acting, if I'm not modeling, I think it's a lot harder for me personally to be able to keep up with the discipline of, of being able to stay in shape, whether it's mentally or physically, spiritually, whatever. Like you have to use everything. Like right now, other than that, I use my kids as a big tool, a motivation, another push for me to be able to stay in shape because I was already pre-diabetic when I got in the worst shape of my life, and I don't even know what that, what other things I had coming if I would have stayed out of shape. But I know that if I stay in shape, I can be able to stay with my kids much longer. And I think that every parent obviously is going to think the same.
Needs to
So,
think the
and
same.
absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of factors, but yeah, acting was a big factor, but there was a lot more before that.
That's good. How did walk us back? You had this on this fifth night of this dream. What what did it inspire you? What action did it inspire you to take? Or where did you kind of process that from? Because it's and I think what I'm trying to do is just remember when we're speaking as folks are going, this is going to live forever. and this is going to be somewhere. And at this point in time, it's like, damn, I'm having the same dreams too. You know what I mean? Or I'm on night 3. Have I got 2 more? Or what is that inspiration that you would say helps someone take that little nudge that you're getting from, we're going to say God here, right? What is that little, that nudge that you're getting? What is the action that you were able to take after that, dude?
Man, that's deep.
That's a good question. I was thinking that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question.
All right, so let's unpack it a little more, John. Because me and you kind of went down it. Like John's like he's in this moment of this elementary school setting, and he's like his veil. You can see when he's telling me the story, I see his armor coming off of him, and this dude who's all buffed up is literally standing with naked in front of all these people in this room, and they're seeing through him and seeing the vulnerability that he has because he knows like I'm not supposed to be doing this, and I've been outed. And I see that after that, he's like, I felt so, that was the moment where I was like, I'm never doing this again. And it hit him. So me, I've had those same realizations of even before, like I remember standing in a convenience store in my hometown, and I dealt with the embarrassment. I let a lot of people down. Like I let a community down of all the things. And mine is, this guy comes in, a good friend of mine, and he's like, and I'm trying to hide, like shit, I don't want nobody to see me. And he's like, hey, Jeff Robertson, what are you doing? I was like, crap, man. I say, hey, I'm doing good, and I wasn't. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm doing great, and I wasn't. I was lying my butt off, and all he said, Abe, was he goes, we're watching you. I'm like, the hell you watching me for? And he goes, because we know the comeback's going to be twice as good as what's gotten you this far. And I was like, in my moment I was like, all right, man, these guys are watching me. And when they say that, there's a little bit of them waiting for me to see if I'm going to fail again.
Yeah. I like
right?
that.
Or if I'm
yeah. So to your point, kind of like when you asked me that same question, it's cool because I think this is a good moment for me. I was able to identify part of it, but since we've had that conversation, my wife and I have talked a little bit more about it. Just that specific daddy-daughter, I've been able to unpack more of it and kind of highlight that action that you're talking about. Does that make sense? So, even now, because I've been asked that question multiple times, like, what was it about the daddy-daughter dance that flipped the script? That changed. And man, there's so many different things. My first reaction was the shame and the guilt. You know what I mean? Of just, I got high, I was taking my daughter to this dance. It was supposed to be a joy moment. I was dreading it, and that guilt, seeing the pictures, how bad I looked. That was the moment I was like, okay, never again. But Megan and I have been together for, at this point, 5 years, 8 years, 7 years at the time. And for the first time ever, I remember before we went to the dance, I was in the room crying, begging her not to make me go to this daddy-daughter dance, which is a horrible thing to say. Like, don't make me go to do this beautiful moment with my daughter. That guilt, that shame. But she said something to me that she's never said to me before. And I didn't remember this until, again, unpacking this, having these conversations, why I think these are positive things for other people to hear, but also for us so that we can unpack them together collectively and learn from those moments. Right. But she, for the first time, said, John, I can't go through this anymore. That was after 10-year addiction. That was after being incarcerated for a year. That was after being cut off the ankle monitor. That was after relapsing after a year of being sober from meth. And she finally, for the first time ever, we've been divorced. We were divorced at this time too. She divorced me while I was in prison with the mindset of it was just so that my stuff didn't get seized. She told me she still wanted to be with me. So in my head, with that moment, I'm divorcing you just because so our assets don't get seized. I still want to be with you. I felt that like, okay, well, I can do whatever I want. She's never going to leave me. I took advantage of that moment. So that moment when I'm about to go daddy-daughter dance and, my daughter's dressed up and she's like, I can't do this with you anymore. And that was the first time she ever said that. And that she said to me yesterday, reminded me of that conversation. It might have been this morning we were talking about it. And that was that aha moment. And all that to be said, it took these type of conversations for me to realize that because I didn't know that at the time. This was 5-6 years ago. And that shame and that guilt, that moment you woke up and you're like, I need to change. Man, it took me 6 years later to realize what was it that made me change. And I think even you asking me, I didn't have a good answer for that. And it's taken me multiple conversations to be able to unpack that. Is that, you know what I mean?
And I think that
to help maybe with that context.
And I think that maybe tomorrow, next week, next month, you're gonna have a different answer. You're gonna have more to add to your to
You're just
your
gonna
life.
add to it. Yeah, Abe, you're right. Yeah, you just add to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a compounding of positivity, I think, sometimes. So my wife, now wife, I was kicking the can pretty hard, Abe, and it was right at Christmas. You know how it is when you get dumped at Christmas. It's like she didn't want to buy me gifts. She she dumped me at Christmas and said, "Here's your gift I bought you." And if I was like, first off, you can stick the gift. I don't need your gift. I always kind of joke about that now. I'm like, damn, I wonder what it was. I mean, she gave it to me later. Um, but then she told me as I was walking out the door, she said, I can't deal with your destructive behaviors. And she, she said, I just can't deal with your destructive behaviors. I remember it as reckless behaviors. So I've got T-shirts that have reckless behavior across of it. She's like true to her word. She still corrected me to this day, and she goes, "I didn't say that. I said destructive behaviors." I'm like, "Well, damn it, I heard it as reckless behaviors." And I told Abe, I was like, "Listen, I kind of was like, told her." Where she could get off at too for thinking that way. And I got in the car and I drove all the way home thinking she was absolutely right. Um, and that was another moment for me, man, was just like saying, all right, you know, if you want, if you want this, and not that like whether that relationship was going to come back, I didn't think it was at the time because I thought it was done just because of the severity of where I was at, and I knew that, but it also helped me turn a corner with just my mental processing, and get out of my own way, and
Yeah.
accept my responsibility, take ownership of the crap that what I was doing, realizing that good people aren't going to freaking allow me to, just like Megan, she's not going to allow you to continue down this path. She's going to draw that line. That's what Crystal did for me, Abe. So I tell you all that just to go back and kind of ask you, and if we're not, it might be a great question for next episode, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
just
yeah.
thinking
You know,
about,
like break it
Yeah.
down. Like, yeah,
um,
I think more
yeah,
will
just
come
thinking
out.
about that action that, yeah,
Yeah, because
that's and it's hard, dude.
it is. It is. I do remember. I didn't say this, but that fifth night when I woke up in the morning, um, I'm sitting in the dining table with my wife. My kids are not there, and I started to tell her. I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this TV show?" And I started telling her what my dream was. This guy, he's suicidal. He he goes through with it, but he doesn't go to hell or to heaven. He goes somewhere else, and somebody greets him and tells him, you know, now is where your journey begins. And that journey is that his soul is going to go back to Earth, and his mission is to help suicidal people. So that was me in the dream, and I'm telling her all this like if it's a movie, and she's like, "Damn, like what movie is this?" I'm like, "No, this ain't a movie. This is something that I've been dreaming." And that's when she was the first person that told me, "You need to do something about this. 'Cause
Yes.
that's beautiful. That's unique. I've never seen or read anything like this." So that's when I started, writing more into it. And the more I started writing into it, the more I got inspired, and the more characters that I started creating. So it was like more layers
Yeah.
come out as I was writing. So I think that was also another motivation for me to keep writing and keep my mind out of the gutter, all of the negative things that was going through my head. And little by little, that's when I started realizing, like, there's more to life.
Yes.
This is man, there's so many things that as a human being, like we have to live by, and there are so many people that love us, and we don't even know, and we don't even realize it
100%.
and until we actually hit that rock bottom, that we're like, damn, like there are people out there that actually care about us.
Yep.
And my
Big
wife was
deal, dude.
absolutely, yeah,
People, I've had to tell people that, like, you don't realize how much people care about you. They want you to be around. I get pissed off. I might be frustrated with somebody. I don't, I want you to be here so I can be pissed off at you. Um, and on that little way, but like it just allows us to function as humans and work through our issues or whatever that, our goods and our bads. And I think it's just, that's part of it. And as I've gotten older, man, I don't see a lot of bad. I don't, if we jiving, we're jiving. If we ain't, we probably ain't gonna hang out anyway. Because I'm just not gonna put myself in that situation anymore. But
Yeah.
what for context, Abe? How old was your kids when this was going on with you early on?
Man, I couldn't even I wouldn't be able to answer that question. You know, at the time, I have twin daughters, and they were close to being toddlers at that time.
Yeah,
My
so little
son,
kids,
huh?
little kids. So the little kids.
And my son, he was a teenager, but he was diagnosed with autism when he was a little kid, so he's always in his own
Yep.
world. You know, he doesn't really he has no filter as far as like showing that type of emotion. So I think in
Yep.
that moment, me seeing my son like that, I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm being selfish.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody is suicidal, they become selfish. So I'm thinking to myself, look at that, my son, my firstborn don't even care about me. You know, which wasn't true, obviously. My wife was always trying to give me my space. Yeah, she would try to help, but at the time, you know, you can only do so much for somebody in that state of mind. And she was, you know, she was my rock, and she, you know, she wasn't able to do any more. You know, she would reach out to her family, my family, friends, and close people, but nobody, you know, nobody would be able to get through what I was going through in that moment.
How long were you in the military?
11 years.
And how did they support you? Did you feel like you had good support from the military like till now? Because you get access to all that. Do you feel like you got support there? Or speak.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm looking for, Abe. Is like I want to talk. Here's what you're gonna realize, and this is the cool part about what we get to do is at some point in time that military vet, there's going to be someone who is damn near close to Abe that's
Yeah.
experiencing what you're experiencing. They're right where you were going, holy crap, I'm getting ready to leave this world because I can't get it all together. And I was just curious, like we know that acting and getting our emotions out and our thoughts and for working out and getting straight with some faith, we know those things, but sometimes when they're looking and they're going in and they're looking for help from the VAs and things along those lines, it's like your experience with that's probably what I was looking just to kind of educate our audience on.
No, no, no. After I got the military, you know, unfortunately, I didn't really have a lot of resources. During the service, while I was in, um, again, like you know, as long as you get the job done, that's what they want. You know, the things that we have to go through especially when we're downrange overseas, you know, we're pretty much guinea pigs. Um, when we need, you know, there's only a handful of people that you can actually really trust and rely on. But as far as like way up there in the chain of command, as far like, at least for me, you know, my military experience, it was, you know, suck it up, you know, put some dirt in it and just walk away. You know, don't worry about it. Everything's going, you know, it's gonna line up the way that it should be. And then the last 4 years of my military career, I was a recruiter here in Texas. That's what brought me to Texas.
That's cool. Yeah.
I volunteered because I was already sick and tired of being downrange away from my family. So I volunteered to become a recruiter, which was the worst decision of my
Okay.
life. You know, I would rather be deployed than to be a recruiter because that was horrible. You know, selling the army to people that have no idea what it is, it's a whole different
I can see
can
it.
of
Yeah.
worms.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so and at the same time, like it was very stressful because I thought I was gonna be able to be home every night, you know, spend more time with the family, with the kids because I'm not being deployed. So as a recruiter, you're not, you know, you are stuck as a recruiter for that time for that term. Whether it's 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, you don't have to deploy. You're not gonna deploy. So I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'll do that. That way I can spend time with my family, which was the opposite. You know, I was hardly having time to be with my kids. Every time I would go home, they're already, you know, getting ready for bed. My wife is always calling me like, "When you coming home?" You know, it's already this time. So it was very stressful. And after I got out, after I was already finishing my time, you know, I had two options: one, get out of the military, or two, go to Korea, and when I was gonna send, they were gonna send me to Korea. I couldn't take my family, so I was like, man, it's a tough decision. My wife and my kids, they got really used to Texas. They love Texas. So I was like, all right, so I guess I have no other choice than, and get out of the military. So I chose my family, and it's been the best decision of my life. Texas has been nothing but great to my family and I. But after I got out, yeah, like it wasn't really. You had to do. It was like a like a checklist as far as like, let's see what issues you have. Let's see what we can offer you. But as far as like trying to really get to know the soldier or the veteran and really dig deep to that soldier's problems, I didn't feel I had the help and the backup that I really needed.
Yeah. that's that's what I would, because that's a lot of folks that are going to tune into us, y'all. Those are the folks that they're lost, and they're turning, they're going to YouTube, and they're looking for just someone who's kind of walked where they've walked at. And I didn't have that back then, Abe. Me and John's talking about it the other night. Like, I just, like, everybody's like, Jeff, you need to get some help. And I'm like, all right, find me somebody who's been where I've been at, done what I've done, and let's all sit down. And I would love to talk to them. And it just didn't exist back then. There's closer now. You got the Jeffs of the world who love these conversations and being vulnerable about it and putting it all out there and just letting letting everybody make out of it what it does. But we've gotten better about how we step into these worlds. There's way more folks like yourself and John who's been there, done that, got their experience, and they're on the other side of it. And so there's a lot of people that are googling looking for us, and they're looking for these conversations because I don't know about y'all, man. There's nothing that inspires me more than when I hear the story of the setback, and then I hear how they come back. And when there's kids involved, or when the guy goes on, he's a dad now, coaching the ball and all this stuff. And it's a really neat story to hear how what could have been turned into this amazing story of
Absolutely.
you need somebody to feel like they feel your struggle.
Yeah,
And people hear that through us. Is my hope.
definitely, definitely. And at least you were willing to tell somebody. You were brave enough. You had the courage to tell that person, okay, bring me the help that I need then. Because there's a lot of others, including myself, that we didn't want anybody to talk with us. You
Yeah.
know, especially if we
Hey,
know.
and just for the record, help never came. I figured it out. Like, help, no one ever. There was never anybody that came along, sat down, and talked to old Jeff. Um, I'm fortunate enough that I had great friends. I had great, my mom. I had a lot of dang good people that came along. Some of the guy I worked for, his family. Just there's different people that really, surrounded me, and then kids came along. My son, like, I
Mm,
tell him now, he's 15. I'm like, dude, you raised me way more. If you, and as he gets older, I tell him little nuggets about what I was dealing with. I'm like, you raised me way better than I drive you to wherever you're supposed to be going, and I'm going to help you get to wherever you're supposed to go. But he's been more of he was more of that corner for me to help me turn and be more of what I was destined to work on, like these conversations, than kicking the can.
Yes.
definitely, absolutely, and yeah,
I think the biggest takeaway from this that I've gotten is that not only is change possible, but you got to be willing to
mm,
make the change
put in the work.
and put in the work, and not just be superficial of surface, but like you said at the beginning, we all have to hit rock bottom to be able to be willing to make that change, but we also got to be able to identify our rock bottom, because sometimes
Yes.
that rock bottom, it could feel like rock bottom at a moment, but then that next day, like, okay, that wasn't as bad, and then you keep digging yourself deeper. So I like to say, you don't have to take rock bottom and rub your face against the gravel. You can take your rock bottom, learn from it, and then I think our sole purpose, like you said, is to show other people that there is a way out of that. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the biggest thing is you got to be willing to change. Once you make that change, be willing to show other people how you change. Because without that, I think that's where we lose our purpose. Change is cool. Like I said, I know a bunch of my friends that have been to prison. They don't like to talk about their past. They don't like to talk about what's going down, but they still seem like something's missing.
Right.
And that thing that's missing is filling their purpose with their darkest moment. Take your darkest moment,
Yeah.
shed that to light, and then let other people learn from it. But you got to be there's got to be humility in that, and I think a lot of that comes from the community that we build because we see all the different lights. Being arrested as a police officer, getting out of the military, dealing with PTSD, and then learning, man, just writing that down is what changed everything. And then just being able to collab on that, man. I think that's been the biggest takeaway from this for me. But I think also just you got to be willing to change.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people struggle. They know they need to, but they're not willing to put in the work, like you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of them that feel like that's their comfort zone.
Yes.
They hit that rock bottom. And
Yeah.
they think that there's probably nothing better, or they can't, like you said, they can't put in that work, or I'm okay here, and if I'm okay here, then you should be okay there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a life. I would say it changes everybody.
Yeah.
And it changed me because, like I said, other than being able to write a novel, which 2 years later I was able to translate it to Spanish, because a lot of the readers, there were people that reached out to me and said, "Hey, Abe, my son or my husband or my good friend, he's going through or she's going through a suicidal episode, and I think that your book might be able to help them." And then weeks later, they text me and they reach out to me and said they loved your book. They're able to to go to counseling.
Yes.
Man, like that, when I got that first message, that to me was a dream come true.
That's the feeling you made it.
Yes.
That's what it feels like when
Yes.
you make it. It's not a financial feeling.
Exactly.
It's
No, you don't
know
care
you
about
help
the
someone,
rest of it.
yeah,
Yes, that was
yeah.
my goal. Like when I finished writing it, like yes, it helped me. It was a therapeutic moment for me. But when I actually was able to publish it, I was like, I want to be able to help at least one person. One person that's going through a struggle, a suicidal episode. They can be able to read this and relate to me and relate to every other suicidal person out there and say there is more to life.
Yeah.
Because I believe that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I believe that.
Mm.
And to be able to get out of that comfort zone that you might think that you're in when it's actually really rock bottom, not because somebody else that loves you or cares for you and says, I want to be able to help you get out of it. It's because there is more to life.
Yes.
And I see a lot of homeless vets or addicted vets or vets that end up in prison or unfortunately end their lives or end up dead. I know that it's because they didn't have that resource. They didn't have somebody to help them out enough or push them, to that level, to that point where they can tell you in the near future, somebody was there for me.
Yes.
And man, it's beautiful.
Having a mentor.
Yes, absolutely.
Having a mentor, just people that you can go to. I think that's a characteristic trait or quality that we lack in, especially getting out of prison. I know, and I imagine the military, you feel like isolation is what you need, and you feel like you need to. For me, it was, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get my shit together, I'm gonna grind it out, put my head down, and continue to do my thing. When all reality, that was hindering my growth by not being able to surround myself by other like-minded people. And that's probably in retrospect what led to me relapsing within the first 60 days, because I didn't put myself around the right people. I put myself around the same old people, the same mentality, and I didn't think about pursuing personal development, if you will. You know what I mean? And now looking back on it, that's something I still struggle with, is just being in not necessarily a crowded setting, but just being around people in community. But I think the more we do it, the more uncomfortable we get, the easier it gets, and the more we learn from it. You know what I mean? Like I'm really big on making sure that we're always in a position to learn, because once you feel like you can't learn anymore, or you've learned enough, or a skill enough, that's when you pull the e-brake on yourself. We just always got to be in a position to learn, be coachable, and take that constructive criticism. I mean that's huge.
Confidence in our failures.
Yeah, there you go. Lesson learned.
Right? We have this amazing confidence in our failures. And I think the lesson that we've all learned here is as much as we think we're in control. And I think that leans into our identities being wrapped up into whatever it was, or military, police, and this or that. Or and when life comes along and it's time for you to change, sometimes you start pushing back against that change that's inevitable. I had this nudging feeling of like, hey man, your time's done. You need to start wrapping up and planning your next thing, because this is, you're going to be moving on to other things in life. And I wasn't ready for that, and life fixed that for me. I think there's one thing is confidence in our failures, and the other thing, Abe, that I wanted to really hammer home as we wrap up here is, we said that, I had texted my mom this the other night about, me and her was just back and forth. And you said it. I wanted to point it out to our guest and for the folks that may be listening to this, is in public safety, that is our mantra. If we can help one person. And in coaching, when you're coaching someone in those things, it's like, if you can just help one person, it'll make a difference. Let me tell you how it is. I'm living proof. That trooper made that decision on the side of that road that night. And he called my sheriff, and my sheriff made that decision. I am living proof that their actions absolutely changed one person's life. And the impact that they had on me is out now. We use it for these moments. I use it when I'm coaching kids. I use it every opportunity I get, is I try to leave somebody better than I found them through the opportunity that the trooper gave me on the side of the road that night. So I'm exactly living proof, that helping one person, that your book is going to do, and it's going to help thousands. We have no doubt about that.
Oh,
But
Yeah.
that one person, what that means, right? That one, I can tell you what it means when you help one person, because I did it on the other side.
yeah.
But here's what I'll tell you is, it's that mushroom effect of positivity. I'm going to go now. Now Jeff has went out, and I've helped 100, and those 100 have helped their 100. And so when you look at the impact of changing that one life, because I don't know about y'all, I'm pretty evangelical about what I do, and I see y'all stuff, and I know y'all are too. So that what you said there is a very, very powerful, and it's 100% the truth, because I live it every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very well said. That was very well said.
It's amazing, man. Yeah.
Hey, where can we find your book? And tell the audience where they can come, and I'll drop it in the notes as well and on my blog. But where
Yeah.
can we find your book, and what's it called?
It's called An Hero. Like when I wrote the title, people were like, "That's a weird, that's a weird
I like it.
title." They wanted to know why I wrote, I titled it. So it's An Space Hero, and the reason I titled it An Hero is because the main character, his name is Andrew. When he was just a baby, his mom, as a nickname, she started calling him An, and the process that he has to go through after being able to go through that phase of having it all in life. He was handsome, he was young, he was single, he had the perfect job, the perfect home. Uh, he had no responsibilities other than just him. And then losing it all, he has an accident and he loses everything. And so now he's under the care of his mom. So he loses hope. And as he thought and believed that he had everything, the only thing that he did not have was a higher power.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he didn't believe in God. He didn't think that after death nothing happens. So the little bit of strength and um, purpose that he had in life, he he just quit and he committed suicide. And that's when he, you know, went to the other side and somebody greets him and tells him, your journey starts now. You have a new mission. You have to go ahead now and go back to Earth and help suicidal people and convince them that, there's more to life. And these are complete strangers. So every chapter in the book is a new person that he has to help out.
That's cool.
And it's called An Hero. And 2 years later, after I published it, I was able to publish it in Spanish. So I had it first with my publishing company. Now I have it through Amazon. I sell them myself as well. Like if somebody wants a copy, I can, I'm able to sign it and dedicate it to them as well. And then after that, 2 years later, I was able to write my first children's book based out of my twin daughters. It's called Twin Daughters and Jewel, the Tooth Fairy. So this is a true story. My girls, when they started losing their teeth, they started writing notes and leaving little snacks and gifts to the Tooth Fairy. And I felt bad, I was like, other than, somebody, us parents, we just give our kids under, money under their pillow. I felt responsible and I was like, I gotta answer these questions. So I went ahead and started writing back. I wrote back. I had to change everything, the font of my handwriting. I had to, give them back other than just money. I had to give them back some gifts. So that inspired me. I was like, man, like this could be a dope children's book. So I went ahead and I started writing about that. Until this day, Jeff, they still are looking forward to their next tooth.
That is so
cool. I had to create
That's
an
awesome,
email.
man. That is awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been a beautiful journey with them. So my
cool.
wife, she gets mad. She's like, the day they find out that that it's not real, they're gonna get so mad at you. I'm like, nah, no, I don't think they'll get upset just because I was able to give that childhood moment for them.
Yes.
Because I grew up thinking, believing in Santa, in the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy, and all that. She didn't. She was raised, not believing in any of that. But when I think of it, I was like, I was a kid opening up these gifts and believing that it was Santa. It was just a different feeling for me.
Yeah,
Being able to lose a tooth and seeing money. And back then, it was just a dime, a quarter.
Yes.
It was a dollar when you get your molar falling off. That to me was like, man, like this tooth fairy is the bomb.
Yes.
So
it sounds like you're able to open up their imagination.
Yeah,
too. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like help them broaden their imagination.
Man, if I show you the letters and the emails and the questions that they be asking this tooth fairy, it's man, like these girls have an imagination out of this world. But it's been so much fun.
That is cool.
And yeah, like both actually all four books because I have them in English and Spanish. I have them all four in Amazon. And I have them as well. Like I can actually get them signed myself if anybody's interested.
Instagram is.
We're cutting out a little bit.
A little bit.
Let me see. Can you hear us? We cut out there for a second.
I got you. Can you got me?
All
There
right.
we go. Yep.
I'm in the chat. So folks want to take advantage of reaching out for you to. Make sure if you're looking for coaching and fitness coaching.
Yes, sir. Yeah, hit me up, Wild Style Fit at on TikTok and then Wild Style Fit on Instagram as well.
Yes, sir. You can also find me on Abe Lopez 84 on my IG. I also have my my clothing line, Latino Avenue. You can find it as well as just like that, Latino Ave on Instagram, Abe Lopez on Facebook.
Good and my connection.
Yeah, we're losing them just a little bit. Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
Let's see.
Right Yeah, close to that 1 hour.
I know. Yeah. So just still uploading right there. Oh,
That happens.
there we go. Yes.
I felt the same way. I was like, I need to shut up.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. That'd be good. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. As actors, entertainers, we gotta be comfortable getting, have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. No, I love it.